Good. Okay. So folks, welcome to the Southwest Virginia Museum Historical State Park Master Planning Meeting. My name is Samantha Wainsgard, and I'm the Chief Planner for our DCR Planning and Recreation Resources Division. I am part of a team of individuals. We also have a number of folks here from our state park staff, our PCMO office, our public communications folks. We're working together as a collaborative team to put together the 10-year update for the museum's master plan. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize a few staff that we have tonight. Many of you who are from the community are already familiar with them. So we've got Gretchen, the park manager over here. We've got Burke. Sharon is back over there. I know Dave was somewhere in here as well. We've got 3 different Daves or Davids. So, yep, and you'll also be hearing from the Division of State Parks Director, Dr. Melissa Baker, as well as the Division of Planning and Recreation and Resources Director, Kelly McClary tonight. But just a quick review of our agenda for the evening. Again, we'll have those opening remarks, an introduction to the park system, welcome, and other information from Gretchen. We'll go over the broad master planning purpose, goals, and process, as well as the master plan itself's goals, the physical, natural, and cultural resource inventories that staff have been working on, as well as public input opportunities, and finally wrapping up and getting y'all on the road in a bit. But just a few housekeeping items before I turn it over to our opening remarks. Just so you're all aware, if you haven't already seen, we have our wonderful staff over here, Brandon, working on videoing tonight's meeting. So this is being recorded. It will be available after the meeting on Zoom, and there are folks that have the opportunity to be viewing us live. So just be aware of that. If you could please mute your phones, and if you happen to be on Zoom and wind up being unmuted, please just make sure your microphones are muted. We will take questions at the end of the meeting tonight to give you all an opportunity if you've got questions for any of the staff or about the master planning process itself. And we will be taking comments from tonight through May 4th. So there'll be a 30-day comment period. And you can email those to me at samantha.wainsgard@dcr.virginia.gov. There's also, my name is plastered on many other things as well. And Zoom is apparently working. But anyway, there'll be a number of different ways for you to get my contact information and email me if you have any comments after tonight's meeting. And we'll talk a bit more about the process itself. So this will not be your only opportunity to provide those comments. And finally, we do have a project webpage set up for folks to be able to view the progress on the master planning. But that being said, I do want to turn it over to our opening remarks. So I'll introduce Kelly McClary to begin with.
Thank you all so much. And this is a wonderful meeting tonight. You have made my night. I'm the Director of Planning, Recreation Resources, and this is one of the largest public meetings I think I've seen in quite a while. So congratulations, give yourselves a hand for that for sure. Thank you for coming. So one other thing I wanted to mention is I understand that this particular area has been rated the #1 destination area in Wise County. So give yourselves a hand on that one as well. And I think it's because we have such public turnout coming to these meetings, right? So we're so excited. I'm one of the divisions of many that work on master planning. And we recently did, maybe some of you came out to the Clinch River master plan that we had recently a month ago or so. We're excited to have you here. We're excited to hear your input. This will not be the first time you get to have input. This is an information meeting, but we also will have another meeting in the future. So don't worry if you forgot to raise your hand or you didn't want to tonight. There'll be a time to do that again later. And of course, Samantha's name, like she said, is plastered everywhere. So you'll find her eventually. With that said, I wanted to welcome you tonight. And now I want to introduce Dr. Melissa Baker, State Parks Director, and she's going to welcome you to the park as well. Thank you.
So good evening, everyone. Like Kelly, I'm really excited to see so many people here. And I apologize to those of you on my staff who were sitting on the second row who I made come to the first row because now the second row is empty. So what does it mean to be a state park? To be a state park, we need to have a resource that is special, right? Something that's significant, something that is so significant to the Commonwealth of Virginia or to the region that it's in, that we want to protect that in perpetuity. And I think that it's clear from the number of people who have showed up for this first public meeting for the master plan for this state park, that what we have here is indeed something that's special, something that's significant to the state and clearly significant to the region, and something that we want to make sure that we protect in perpetuity, and not just protect, but allow other people to be able to experience what's special about the Commonwealth and what's special about the state parks. And so I just want to tell you, thank you for coming tonight to help us kick off our master planning process for the Southwest Virginia Museum Historical State Park. It's clear that this is very special to all of you. It's special to all of us as well. It's one of 41 state parks in the system. Gretchen's going to talk about that in a moment. Each of them founded and based on unique attributes that make them significant. And I think we all know that this is a significant resource, and it's also different than a lot of what we have in the state park system. And so we're really excited to hear from you as we go through the master planning process. What is your vision for the Southwest Virginia Museum Historical State Park? What makes it special to you? And how can we build the future of this state park so that we can continue to protect what's special here in perpetuity? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gretchen Cope, the park manager of the state park here, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the system and about the state park.
Thank you very much, Melissa. So as Melissa just mentioned, my name is Gretchen Cope, and I'm the park manager here at the Southwest Virginia Museum Historical State Park. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have this room so completely full of people. The support really means a lot. So as Melissa also mentioned, this park is one of 41 state parks and counting spread across the Commonwealth, going all the way from here in the Southwest region, across all the way to Tidewater. All the parks are very unique, very special. They began with 6 parks in 1936, and we're adding more. So it's a very exciting time in the agency. Now, this park joined the Virginia State Park System in 1948. And I'm going to back up to the previous slide here for just a moment. I know the map may be hard for some of you to see, and I apologize for that. But if you look right here, of course, we're in the far southwestern region. Well, now we have Wilderness Road State Park, Natural Tunnel, Clinch River, the Breaks. Well, Hungry Mother, which was one of the original 6 parks, until the 60s, the Southwest Virginia Museum was actually the only park west of Hungry Mother, which is pretty significant. It's something we like to point out. We've got a long history here. The museum, of course, is a National Historic Landmark. It features a vast array of cultural resources, which we'll dive into a little bit later. We have a wide variety of programs and events, which many of you obviously are aware of. The Gathering in the Gap Music Festival, which is coming up May 27th. So hold your calendars there. This year is also actually coincides with the park's 75th anniversary. So we've got a lot of fun stuff planned there. The Lunch on the Lawn music series will start in June of this year. The Acoustic Coffee House just started this past Saturday, and we had great attendance for that. So it's a very exciting start to our busy season. various children's programs and camps, like a junior ranger camp, music camp, all sorts of activities there, including self-guided opportunities. The WISE Jams music program, JAM stands for Junior Appalachian Musicians. It's been a very successful program here. And Hoots and Haynes and Festival of Trees are some of our annual programs. The Festival of Trees this year will be our 28th annual event. It's a very long running program. And active volunteer and community engagement programs. So I mentioned WISE Jams. We work with WISE Pro Art to offer that. It's been a successful program that we offer each semester, have students from the area come in, they learn how to play the fiddle, guitar, banjo. It's been a wonderful collaborative program. And we work with Mountain Empire Community College, which is how we've got Brandon here this evening, doing all the great tech stuff and allowing us to stream this as well as record it. We also work with Mountain Empire Older Citizens, the town of Big Stone Gap. We have several here from the town. We appreciate that. So we're very lucky in that regard. We've got a very robust volunteer program and very, very active Friends group. The Friends actually provided the refreshments for this evening. So thank you to our Friends members. I know we have several in attendance. Well, the park's purpose is to collect, preserve, and interpret the history of Southwest Virginia in perpetuity through educational exhibits and programs. I've just mentioned a few of our programs, so you can see there that we try our best in that regard. And then the museum is full of wonderful exhibits. We do some on a rotating basis at libraries around the region as well. So we're doing our best there. The park background, I'll only go into this a little because I know we're going to dive in a little deeper later on, but we do have the museum, of course, the carriage house, which houses our collection, the Poplar Hill Cottage, which is an overnight facility. We have multiple support buildings, including our administrative building, and then some adjacent parcels that we use for parking and other event space. We will soon, hopefully, have the parcel where the Interstate 101 car is sitting currently. So we're excited to officially add that to the park. We have artifacts that convey the history and culture of Southwest Virginia, as well as some global artifacts, but Mr. Burt Greer is gonna take care of going through those details in a little while. And then a diverse range of educational programming and festivals, which we talked about just a little bit ago. That's where we are as far as the park goes. Now I'm going to turn it over to Samantha.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. That was a wonderful overview of the state park system and the park itself. So when we're talking about the master planning process, the first thing what we've been talking about a lot as a team is with this meeting is starting broad and narrowing our focus. So as we progress through the meeting tonight, we are going to be talking about, that broad state parks, DCR focus and narrowing it down into some of the specific resources that Gretchen Burke and David Bryan, our state parks planner, are going to talk about a bit more. So just to begin the discussion, though, we're talking about the specific purpose of tonight's meeting and goals. So I'll dig into this a little bit more, but tonight is the public information meeting. Per code, we do have a requirement of having several public meetings, including an information meeting tonight, as well as a public comment meeting later on. And so tonight's purpose, with it being that information meeting, is to introduce all of you to the park and the master planning process as a whole. We're going to review the park resources, natural, cultural, and physical, and provide you all with the opportunity to provide input with regards to the future of the park. And again, this is not going to be at the end of this meeting. We're not going to say comments are closed. This is an open opportunity to continue to have that dialogue through the process to get all of your input and opportunities for that throughout the overall process. And now I've hidden clicker. So with that being said, in terms of the master planning vision that we've developed with the DCR, is we look at what do we have is our first step. So what we're doing right now internally is working with staff to identify those resources that we know about or that we are finding out about, and working as a team to kind of research what we have and identifying that information. And then working with you all to figure out what it is that we want. So we want to make sure that we capture what we have, what do we want, and then working collaboratively with the agency as well as the public to figure out how do we get there. So working through those three larger steps, that's going to be the overarching theme through the master planning vision for this park, as well as master planning for DCR as a whole. Now this is one of our favorite charts here. This is our master planning cycle. This is kind of the overall process for master planning generally. So this is what Southwest Virginia, all the different steps that will go into making that master plan that's going to help guide the state park into the future. A lot of these different parts of it, the pre-planning, the kickoff, the evaluation, are parts that we do internally to get us here to tonight's event. We have the public information meeting tonight that brings you all into the discussion, and that discussion will continue through the cycle. We're looking at visitor experience, evaluation of needs, putting together all that information from that point, and then we will come back to you all for a public comment meeting to present what we've been able to do in that first part of the cycle, continue to get your comments, and again, make sure that your voices are heard and that we've had an opportunity to not just tell you what's out there, but to also hear from you about what you want and understand what your vision as well for the park. And then once we've had that opportunity for public comment, we will look at the closing things out and finally adoption of the plan, which will help again guide how we move forward with developing different aspects of the park into the future. Right. So again, I'm going to go ahead and invite David Bryan, our state parks planner, up to take over the next section of the presentation. Thank you, David.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see all the smiling faces and all the support here in the community. It's great to see everybody. I'm David Bryan. I'm the state parks planner. I work out of Richmond as part of our resource management team at Virginia State Parks. So as Gretchen hinted at earlier tonight, we already have a lot of great special things that are going on at the park today, but the Code of Virginia requires us to open, each master plan up every decade or so, and to really dig back in. It is a way to look at the future, and things change over the period of 10 years, and so we want to look at it and use what we have today to build the future age. So we really, at the end of this process, our goal is really an ambitious, achievable master plan, something that really reaches into the future, helps us set a new legacy for the park, but also is something we can achieve. We're going to get into a little bit more this evening, but we want to be guided and informed by resources. As Director Baker said earlier, all of our parks are special for one reason or another, and it's usually those resources, whether it be cultural resources, as in the museum, or be natural resources at some parks, historical resources, scenic resources, whatever the case may be. We also want to be consistent with our visitor experience themes and objectives. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And of course, this is a public facing process. So this is y'all's opportunity to help shape the future here at the park. And Samantha later will go into some of the details on how exactly you can do that. All right, resources lead the way. So I'm not going to read this slide off here, but just wanted to make the point that the Virginia State Parks mission starts with the resource. So it's to conserve the natural, scenic, historic, and cultural resources of the Commonwealth. Down here in Southwest Virginia, we have the museum that we're at today. We have Hungry Mother, Grayson Highlands, Natural Tunnel, Clinch River, and the like. Each one of those parks is very special based upon the resources that are there on site. The thing is, we have to make sure that we're utilizing those resources in a responsible manner and balancing it with the other side of our jobs and the other hat, so to speak, and that is recreation. So we have conservation on one side, And then we have recreation on the other, to provide opportunities for citizens of the Commonwealth, as well as for our guests to come in and enjoy. So we want to make sure that as we go through this process, that we keep the resource at the forefront and then move it forward with recreational opportunities and access and so forth. You've probably seen the term or heard the term from me and some of the other speakers tonight of visitor experience. That's a term that we use a lot in parks. It really refers to what are the main themes of a park, and what are those themes that we want to convey to the public, to our visitors. We also talk a lot about audiences. So who is currently coming to our park and how can we further their experience? Who is not coming to our park and why? And how do we reach out to them and maybe bring them into the fold to enjoy the park moving forward? We also talk about those essential experiences, or those things that we want everybody to enjoy when they come to the park. So when they go home, there's certain things they can keep in their memory and take home with them. So all of that goes into our needs assessment. What do we need to move this park forward, and phase development. But start with the resource and then provide recreational and educational opportunities that are consistent with that resource. So we want to start with the physical resources. We're going to go through a little bit through our physical resources at the park. Then we're going to go into natural resources of the park, and then turn it over to Brooke Greer, our historic preservation specialist, to go through the cultural resources here at the park that make it special. So obviously, we're here at the Southwest Virginia Museum in the basement. It's a wonderful facility here, 11 to 12,000 square feet, constructed in the late 1800s, 1880s, and 1890s. I know all of you are very familiar with the park. If there's anybody in here that is new to the museum, obviously on the outside, you probably, as you came in, saw the sandstone and limestone that were locally quarried, used to build this museum, or what it was a house at that point, the Ayers house. Also, the red oak interiors, especially when you get into the upper floors. But looking at the floors themselves, you're looking at the ceilings, the woodwork on the doors and the frames. I mean, this is truly an amazing facility. The craftsmanship that went into this place when it was built is just astounding, and it's worth looking at even just by itself to come in and consider the architecture here. I know the first time that I was here with my family several years ago, my son really enjoyed looking at all the different patterns that are in the woodwork. I think there was a scavenger hunt. I don't know if y'all still have it, but there's still a scavenger hunt. You can go look for all the designs throughout the building. It was purchased by C. Bascom Slimp in 1929. And I think Mr. Greer over here is going to go to tell you a little bit more about the story of the museum and the park as he goes through the collection later on today. The carriage house, Gretchen had also mentioned, it's next door, so just due west of us over in this direction. This is where we house the collection. So for those who are familiar with the way museums work, for every artifact that you would see up there on the first and second floors as you go through the exhibits, there's more artifacts that aren't seen. And that's because we have those to rotate in and out, to have exhibits that are coming in, keeping things fresh. Also, if there's exhibits in town, local libraries or schools, or even traveling exhibits for some museums, that's where we store all of our collection. All museums have these type of things, or should. I'm sure the Smithsonian has a pretty large one comparatively, but here we've got the carriage house is obviously not originally intended as a collection house, but that's what it is today. It's about 2,300 square feet, painted brick exterior, and it serves its duty well. Although we, in the future, we'll look to see if we have something else to put the collection in. All right, administrative offices. The reason we put this in is because for every public-facing amenity in a state park, there's a whole other suite of buildings and amenities that really form the infrastructure that keep the park going. So as a member of the public, when you come to a state park, you're going to be used to, of course, here the museum. If you go to Natural Tunnel or Hungry Mother, you'll see the visitor centers and the cabins and the campgrounds and that type of thing. And those are all very important, but there's also a whole suite of infrastructure behind the scenes that keeps that park rolling. So our park administrative offices, our maintenance shops and sheds, those are the types of things that are really important for us to make sure that we can serve you to the best of our ability. In any case, the administrative office is here from the park, located across the street that way, northwest of the museum. The house was constructed approximately in 1940. It's a little over 4,000 square feet, wood frame structure with brick exterior and variety of siding. And it is currently utilized as offices for our park manager, Gretchen Cope, and her staff, as well as some meeting area back in the back. Other structures that we just wanted to, I skipped over there one thing, Poplar Hill Cottage, most importantly. So for those who haven't had the opportunity, we do have overnight amenities here at the Poplar Hill Cottage, which is again a block over, located across the street northwest. Relatively speaking, this is a young building compared to the museum. It's constructed in 1985 or so, 12 to 1,300 square feet. For those who are not aware, you can rent that facility. It has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, living room, and so forth. It can hold up to 8 guests, so it's available to rent. Actually, for those who are not aware, this is really a great central location for Virginia State Parks in the Southwest District. You really stay here, and you can go a half hour south to Natural Tunnel. You can go an hour west to Wilderness Road. You can go about 40 minutes east to Clinch River State Park. This is a great place, if you haven't done it already, to come stay the weekend or a couple days in the weekdays and go visit all the parks together. So just for future ideas. Other structures, we have the park manager residence, which is located catty corner here across the street. We do have a maintenance building and various storage sheds. Again, those are the things that make the park work, that keep the park going. The museum has the stone wall that's outside. You all hopefully saw it as you walked up. That's another physical resource, and as well as a historic resource. We have 2 lots, the ball lot and the leach lot. And then, of course, Park Manager Cope also mentioned that the lot with the train car is in process of coming to the park, but it's not part of the park quite yet. Here's just, I don't know if you can see that in the back, but just a brief map. So here we are at the museum where we're in today. Here's the carriage house next door, which holds the collection. A lot of our administrative offices are over here, the maintenance building, Poplar Hill Cottage, and these are those 2 lots, the parking lot and the ball lot. The park manager's residence is over there off to the east side of the map. All right, we're going to shift now into natural resources. Now, I'm working with the district resource specialist for this area. Obviously, the natural resource story at the Southwest Virginia Museum Historical State Park is a little bit different than most of our other state parks. Most of them, like a Hungry Mother or Grayson Highlands, Natural Tunnel, we have large ecosystems, large blocks of forest that we're trying to manage for those native species. Here at the museum, what we're trying to do is keep those native species that are around the park, especially in the Victorian Gardens. We're trying to keep them going. They provide shade. They provide an opportunity for special events around the park, and just really give the park some beauty. There's a list of species up here. I'm not going to go through it, but we are trying to keep track of what species are here to manage them in perpetuity. One thing I wanted to mention, though, even at a smaller park like this, we do have our challenges in terms of natural resources. Invasive species, they're pretty ubiquitous topic across the park system, and that's no different here. We do have a variety of invasives that we're trying to manage. And if you're not familiar with the term invasive species, those are generally non-native, non-endemic species from outside the area. Many of these are ones that have been brought to the United States, either purposefully or accidentally. And now they've become established here in Virginia. And a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them create both environmental and ecosystem harm, as well as economic harm. And 2 specifically we wanted to point out here was the privet, which is an invasive shrub. And then particularly the emerald ash borer, which is that pretty green insect. It's pretty, but it's also pretty devastating. It's only about this big. It's really a tiny little creature, but those have spread throughout the eastern United States, and they are here in this park. These pictures here, if you've had any events, if you've been to one of the events in the museum, you've probably sat under those trees before, listening to maybe some banjo music or some other, maybe you've seen a wedding here. But that is a large white ash tree. There's 2 of them outside that they're beautiful. They are infected with emerald ash borer. And so we are trying to manage those trees to keep those going in perpetuity. So it's interesting, for this park, those 2 trees are a very special part of the resource, a very special part of the experience here. Whereas if you go, down the road to one of our other parks, we're managing more on an ecosystem scale. But nonetheless, we do want to put those natural resources at the forefront. We are treating these ash trees routinely. Who's to say how long they're going to last, but so far, so good. Interesting side fact, if you have time later, if you want to go out there, if you ever want to know if your ash trees are infected, look for a small little D shape. That's where the adults, once they metamorphose from a larvae into a insect, they'll dig out and they leave a little D shape behind. So anyway, there's your random fact of the day. So I'm going to transition now to cultural resources. So obviously, physical resources, we've given you a brief tour of the park. Our natural resources are limited compared to some of our other state parks, but we're still trying to do the best we can to manage what we have here. But the heart and soul of the Southwest Virginia Museum Historical State Park is our cultural resources. And that includes the building itself, but especially the collection that's contained therein. So I'm going to hand it over now to Bert Greer, our historic preservation specialist, who's just a wealth of knowledge on everything concerning the collection. And here we go.
Well, thank you, David, and thanks to everybody for being here. So a little overview of our collection and how the place came to be. Were it not for the collecting of brother and sister siblings, Sebascom Slimp and his sister, Janie Slimp Newman, who collected a lot of things specific to Southwest Virginia, a lot of things going back to the pioneer times, early settlement, a lot of old farm implements and different things that really personified the area. But also they would travel the world for years as well. And they collected a lot of things in their travels, and all of the things that they had amassed, they really wanted it to be for the benefit, the overall benefit of the folks here in Southwest Virginia. So things that they brought back from, travels across the world maybe didn't come from here or didn't necessarily tell the story from here, but where else would the people that lived here ever get a chance or an opportunity to see some of these things? So the reasons why they collected were very good. They would collect about 20,000 artifacts initially. That's what we had whenever the museum was established. Sebascom Slimp would purchase this while it was still a home in 1929. That was known before that as the heirs home. And he knew right away what he wanted to do with this structure. He never wanted to live in it. That wasn't his aim at all. It was to establish a museum at some point in time and a place to house he and his sister's collection. So purchased it in 1929. Extended family would live in the home for a few years over the 1930s, basically. And then when Sebascom died in the early 1940s, and there was the establishment of the Slimp Foundation, and then the ball really starts to get rolling here. The Commonwealth would take possession of the structure here in 1946. There'd be a couple of years before it would actually open as a park. As Gretchen mentioned, in 1948, it would come on as a satellite of Hungry Mother. Again, the only park this far southwest other than Hungry Mother at that point in time. The first curator here was a gentleman that was well acquainted with Congressman Slimp. His name was James E. True. He had been an artist that participated in some of the WPA projects and programs that Congressman Slimp had championed here, and was tapped to be the first curator or director, as it would have been called at that point. And he would be the director here from 1948 until the early 70s, about 1974. So a lot took place during that time period as far as further collecting after the museum was established. In 1988, became a standalone park. We were no longer a satellite of Hungry Mother, or at that point in time would have been a satellite of Natural Tunnel, but became a standalone state park with its own park manager about 1988. And this year we're celebrating our 75th year as a Virginia State Park. Let's see here. As far as our collection goes, the collection that we have about 4,600 or over 4,600 photographs, about 3,800 documents or things that we refer to generally as flat storage, over 2,000 books. There's around 50,000 additional artifacts and natural specimens. That's two completely different things, as you may know. Artifacts people have made or acted on, specimens being the things that the earth has created. We have things here that are every material you can think of: wood, stone, leather, metal, glass, textiles, and other materials. Human produced antiquities we have they go back at least 6,000 years, and some of our natural history specimens, of course, can go back millions of years. Such a vast array of objects here. The collection is really diverse, and it's growing slowly but surely. And I pulled just a few artifacts here to touch on, and this is really a sample of a sample of a sample. We have all said and done here around 80,000 different artifacts when you include the Virginia State Parks collection as well. On the left up here, you see what we refer to as Devonian brachiopods. Those go back about 350 million years. Those are an indicator of when the Appalachian Mountains were created, basically. So were it not for that period of time, 350 million years ago, all of our stories would be very, very different, very different. The middle there is the 101 car. You've heard that referred to a couple of times here that we have in the parks collection. It was built in the shops of the South Carolina Railroad around 1870 or so through several changes of hands between different railroads and private ownership. It would come to be in the parks collection here about 2017. We're very proud of it. As far as these types of cars go, these types of rolling stock for the railroad, this is one of the best examples of a wooden rail car in the United States. It is Smithsonian quality. On the right is just a small detail of a quilt that's actually on display upstairs. This past Saturday, we just opened our Stitch in Time quilt show. So this quilt was made, we believe sometime in the mid 1800s, 1850 or so, by a lady named Alpha Slimp Hayburn, who was the sister of Campbell Slimp, the father of C. Bascom and Janie Slimp Newman. If you go up and look at this little picture doesn't do it justice at all. If you were to go and look at it, it is a wonderful example of local craftsmanship. I'm a sucker for quilts, and this one is lovely. And so if you want to come in one day and have a look at our quilt show, please do. Down in the lower left here is an accordion, and it came to this country on a French steamer with an immigrant to Ellis Island. At that point in time, the gentleman's name was Romero Danilon, okay? And it was quickly Americanized to Rome Daniel, all right? So we can say that, we can spell that, we can write that. And so, and that happened over and over again, as we know. So Rome had this plan to travel for a couple of years and work and make money, and then he was going to go back to Italy for his mother and his family. As so happened many times as well, he never made the return trip to Italy, settled in Big Stone Gap as a mason, a brick mason and a stone mason, but continued to play the accordion and would sing in his native language. And this is something that was donated to the museum a few years back. The lower right is something that a lot of folks that came to the museum, especially when Mr. True was still here in the 70s and 80s, I remember it, but was a sea captain's desk or a ship captain's desk. And it was one of Mr. True's favorite things to demonstrate and show folks. He was such a great docent with all of the artifacts. And this has some very neat mechanical features given its age. It's from about 1880 or so, and it has some secret compartments in it and all kinds of little things. The way that it folds up and becomes portable is really, really interesting and ingenious. And it's one of the things, like I said, that Mr. True really used a lot to capture the imagination of countless folks that visited this museum. I noticed some of the remarks on the post that we had online on Facebook, and people were noting that's one thing that really still stood out in their memory, was coming and seeing Mr. True manipulate all of the workings of this desk. It was something that he was very proud of and excited about, along with everything else. But like I said, this is 5 out of 80,000, basically, roughly. So this was a random sample, but all of these things have stories to tell. And that's the important part. The one thing is keeping it in perpetuity. The other thing is sharing it and having it speak. So I appreciate it very much. Thanks very much for listening to me. Okay.
So you've heard from a lot of great speakers tonight. Again, with this being a public information meeting, a lot of what we're giving you tonight is information about the park, about the master planning process, about who we are and what we're trying to work with y'all to create with the master plan. And as David and several others have also mentioned, we do have public input opportunities as part of this meeting. There's one of our maps of the park that's outside that you can take a look at to kind of see what we currently have. And you'll be able to view this presentation after the meeting as well, to go back and look at some of the different resources that folks talked about. But what we need from you is your input in developing this master plan and helping guide the vision and future of the park, so that, again, we can look at that three-tiered approach to the master planning vision of what we have, what we want, and how do we get there. And again, you all are a big part of how we get there. So what we have tonight is when you leave tonight, we have a public survey or a public input survey. It's a series of 12 questions that we developed in coordination with the master planning team and our public communications and marketing office. You'll have the opportunity, if you'd like to fill it out tonight, you can, and you can return it to any of the DCR staff that are here. We also will have it put live on our webpage, the Southwest Virginia project webpage, and you can fill it out online on your own time there as well. Or you can send it back in or email it to me. All the information for how to return it to us, short of putting it on a pigeon and having it flown back to us, is available. And I'm sure we could arrange for that option as well. But what we're really just trying to drive home is we want to get your input on the future of this park, and we want to be able to do it in whatever way is going to meet you where you're at. So if you don't have time to fill it out tonight, please take it home, take some time to write up what you need to. If there's not enough space, please feel free to add any additional comments, and just you can get that information back to me. I think the online survey gives you 500 characters, which is a good starting point. And if you need more, again, my information will be on there, and I'm happy to take that information from you. But again, that input will be integral in us being able to be informed about your experiences or the experiences you may want to have, as well as the future development and staffing needs for the park itself. So again, that concludes the formal part of tonight's presentation. What we'd like to be able to do now is, I know we have folks on Zoom, and we also have a microphone. If you have any questions for myself or any of the other speakers or staff that are here tonight, either on the master planning process, the park itself, as it relates to the master plan, or any of the resources that Burke Greer and David Bryan so excellently went over, we'd be happy to take those questions or comments now. Like I said, Burke will be over here, and we can also write up any of your questions on the board here. So we'll just take a moment to transition over there so we can hear from you. Yeah, okay.
I was gonna say, why don't we start with the live audience?
Okay. So anyone from the live audience, questions or comments, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Rita, you have the microphone. You want to go ahead over here?
First of all, thanks for coming, and thanks DCR for your dedication to Southwest Virginia, not only here, but throughout the region. I'm Ron Flannery. I'm retired 15 years now as director at Lenawisco Planning District Commission. My principal interest of all the stuff here is cool and interesting and important, but I have a particular interest in the 101 car, as Sharon certainly knows. I was involved in saving the car initially in 1988, and we'll skip over all the details of how it ended up here, but it ended up here through the work of the town, the Gap Corporation, and particularly Sharon Buchanan at DCR. The fact that it's here, and by the way, we managed in the process to change out the trucks, which are the wheel sets for the ones that we originally had that were donated that were like late 1940s vintage. So we got authentic trucks in an exchange with the North Carolina Transportation Museum. So that was a nice collaborative effort. I would like to urge you to work with Department of Historic Resources to seek inclusion of that car on the Virginia Landmarks Register. There's a lot of, most of the research is done. All that stuff is in the files here. I surrendered all that stuff, but we're also available to answer other questions. And there's a lot more information on the car that's come up. And then, of course, if that happens, it should be on the National Register of Historic Places. As to what you guys could do in the future for the car, I'd like to see some interactive process where maybe you could modify the decking where folks could look in on the north side of the car, maybe illuminate it at night, maybe even use some high-tech mannequins to have a couple of railroad executives in there, you know, conniving. And I also know that within the collection here, you have a full set of china that would fit in the car perfectly. So it's a great opportunity. It is a priceless artifact. As indicated earlier, it was built in 1870 in the shops of the South Carolina Railroad. It is the oldest piece of Southern Railway equipment anywhere that's still in existence. So it is an extremely rare artifact, and it's probably about 90% original. So thanks for considering my comments, and anything I can do to help you guys, I certainly will. Thank you.
I saw a couple other hands as well.
I just want to commend all of the employees of Southwest Virginia Museum. They're absolutely quality people. They continue to integrate with the community, try to involve all ages in the aspects of preservation of our area. So I commend you all. I'm a neighbor, so I'm often in the midst of everything, but my comment really is, the future resides within our children. So what we need to do to interact with the children, whether it's to start a junior rangers program, junior naturalist, gardener program, anything that we can to continue to involve our children. I think we're talking about the future, and they are definitely the future, and they need to understand the history, the background, and try to continue to preserve our area and the benefits of the resources and the natural environment. So the other thing that I'm not sure how we are doing, Gretchen, I like that you made me feel real comfortable saying you all, by the way. But we work together as a community. That's what brings our history to focus, and people feel invited and comfortable coming here. So I would like to see the state become more involved locally, trying to do more tourism, with maybe getting tourists together, like you said, using your cottage or using local bed and breakfasts to, bring more people in, whether, have a weekend to come to the drama, have a weekend to tour the John Fox Jr., have a nice dinner there. But I think, we need to be more proactive, in using the other historical parts of the community to also invite, people in their area, because we don't want to just come for one thing. We want them to know, all the history that we have. And I think a joint venture and working, together with the community members would certainly produce, a more positive result. But thank you all for coming and, getting our input. It's very important. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Renee Hodges, and I am here to see how one goes about getting artifacts or something that is a personal collection of my grandfather, who is Dink. His name was Balthus Lee Sowards. He was a photographer, and this is actually a selfie. He took another camera and tripod and set it up and took a picture of himself. And he was a very prolific photographer in Pound. I have the camera, the tripod, the satchel the camera comes in. I've got about 75 glass plates that I'm working on printing. Tim Cox has been helping me work on this. And I've got in this box a bunch of the prints that he's done from some of the glass plates that I've already done. And I'm interested in loaning this for a long time to the museum so that his work can be seen. The camera was in Pennsylvania. After his death in 55, I only got it a year ago. It's been in a closet all that time. It never been opened until I opened it. So I cleaned up the camera, and I'm really interested in seeing how I can go about having the scene. And by the way, he is Red Fox, Marshall Taylor's son, who was one of the last people to be hung in Wise County. He is his son. So there's a connection to that history too. And he also took the famous picture of Devil John Wright's baptism. That's his picture. And I actually have a small copy of it. I don't have the glass plate, but I have a copy. And I produced it up into a poster, and you could see the detail just from a picture this small. That's how good the picture was. And I'd like to talk to somebody to see how I can go about getting this to be seen. Gretchen?
I can speak to that and do my best. Burke and Sharon, feel free to speak up if you'd like, if you have something to add. But we typically, we don't do exhibits on loan for many reasons. One of which with what you're speaking about, which is very interesting and it's very noteworthy and worth sharing with people, I do realize. But we don't put them exhibits on loan here on display. One reason is because we really don't have a way to protect them. We don't have a way to enclose them to keep people from gaining access to them. If you go through the museum now and you see the quilt exhibition, that's a very different matter. And it's arranged differently and so different from the artifacts that you're talking about. So we can definitely continue this discussion afterward. If you'd like to have some one-on-one conversation, I think that might be the best approach, but I'm definitely willing to speak with you. Did anybody else have anything to add to that? Okay.
Hi, I'm Nancy Bailey and I'm Vice Mayor of Big Stone Gap, but also I grew up right down here at the bottom of the hill. I've known this museum my whole life. When I was growing up, and especially my early years, my friends that lived in our neighborhood down here, Proctor Street, Cherokee, all this, we would come up here sometimes every day in the summer because we didn't have air conditioning. And this was the coolest, literally the coolest place to be in the whole town. And we came up here, and I just want, James True was such and you mentioned he was the curator. He was so tolerant of us, and, would come every time we would come up here, he would give us the whole rundown. And I remember the china that came from, England, and, the train that was down here. You remember, Ron remembers the train. I just have so many wonderful memories of this museum. And as far as visitor experience, you were talking about visitor experience. I want to see that for all of our children. And Mary made that clear too, that there are so many things that we need to make sure that are passed on to our children. So, and thank you for all you've done. And thank you for what you're doing for our museum.
With respect to the train, that was built by a gentleman named Carter, right? Larry? He was ran a shoe shop in Appalachia. It's I think it's on the first floor. It is an operable steam locomotive. It is operable. One of the things, and I think I talked to Sharon about this one time, and I think it may be on like semi-permanent loan or something, but there's some strings attached to it. It would be great if you got, it is a pressure vessel, so you'd need to have a qualified firm to work on it, but it could be restored to operation without a small fortune. And you could build some temporary track around, periodically and operate the steam locomotive for special events. But it is possible to operate the locomotive under steam. So just giving you some idea.
That train used to run around his house on Railroad Avenue in Appalachia. It had cars behind it, and all the kids in town would pile in and ride. So it is truly an operable steam engine, a model of those that used to run on the main lines here.
Hi, I'm Amy Greer, and I'm representing Mountain Empire Community College. As Gretchen mentioned, we have a great partnership with the museum. But one thing I wanted to know, actually two things. I have students that sometimes come to my office, or I'm aware of, that ask, gosh, I'd really like to become a park ranger. And I'd like to provide as many opportunities for those students as possible. The lady back here mentioned our youth, and I think one of the best ways to get our youth involved is to actually have them come and work here and experience what it's like in a park. However, most of the time, those internships or partnerships are probably not paid opportunities for students. And I know that at least at Mountain Empire, almost 90% of our students received some type of financial aid, including Pell assistance. That's the highest aid that's available because of their need. So what I'm asking is, if you were to invest in resources, please consider investing in possible internships for youth, college or high school. I think it would benefit the park and it would benefit our region. Second, I also volunteer here from time to time, and I had the pleasure to walk around the grounds this Sunday with Ms. Moore, who has volunteered here for a long time. She is particularly interested in our garden areas, and that's something I like to do as a hobby. So she took me around the grounds and showed me all of the beautiful things that are available here. And honestly, when I think about it, this museum offers one of the best opportunities for our young people to experience what an actual garden looks like in a home environment. So there's so many opportunities to pass on what a pollinator garden is, or just how to manage trees or your wildlife, the butterfly garden. I think this is a great example here, and I'd like to preserve that. I know it takes a lot of work. I work for a state agency. We have little to no resources. So, if you have funding to invest in the grounds, consider the grounds as just important as the inside of this facility as well. So I'll shut up now. Thank you.
So one thing I wanted to mention, because I've heard that as a theme already regarding bringing our youth, is I want to challenge everybody here, the next time we come for the public input meeting, bring your children, bring your grandchildren. We need more people at our input meeting that are our youth, the people that we're trying to reach out to, that we want to come for future generations. We need them to come to these meetings. Now, hopefully they're on the Zoom meetings because, right, those are where all the 18-year-olds are. But hopefully, I want to challenge you guys to bring, it sounds like that's your interest, to bring those people with you. We want to see them and want to encourage them to be part of this master plan process as well.
Speaking of Zoom, it sounds like we might have a couple of questions from our Zoom folks. Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
All
We're
right.
seeing 18-year-olds aren't on Zoom. Any other questions from you guys?
Scout programs, in the area, there's so many opportunities, bringing in the children, it's endless. I know that the museum does bring in children to do tours, I just live right across the road, so, I see them busing me in and stuff, which is a great opportunity because a lot of children don't have the economic opportunity to come. So, I really commend getting the schools involved, but not just limiting the opportunity here on the grounds, but, having employees go do the programs at the schools. We need to reach out more. It's not just about continuing to, improve the environment here, but we need to bring that out to the community. So, whether it be through scout programs, working on badges, there's just so many different opportunities, even in the churches, there's youth groups everywhere that we could bring in to do projects, to help with these projects. So, I just think that's really my key is the outreach. Thank you. Thank you. So,
Do you have a minute?
yeah, oh, absolutely. No, we didn't, sorry, didn't see you over there.
I'm Becky Stapleton. I'm a member of a friends group here. And we're talking about the children, and I cannot agree more. One thing we have started the last couple of years is a junior ranger camp here in the summer, and it only lasts a week, and it's only for a few hours each day. But the last 2 years we have done this, we have had kids here that have loved it, and they have learned so much. Now, I've been privileged to be able to help with it, and I'm an old lady, and I've sat there when, these guys have been doing their instruction. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that either, but they make it fun. They make it interesting, and these kids love it. And then I'm out in town and I'll see their parents and grandparents, and they come up to me and they say, when are you all doing that again? My child wants to do it again. So I would like to see if we have funds maybe in the future to expand that and maybe do it with other age groups to get the kids here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carol Moore, and I've been a volunteer here for a long time. And I remember first coming as volunteer when Sharon Buchanan started as a park ranger. And I would have to say that Sharon is a real visionary, because we started having historic bus tours. We started having the artisan gallery. She started expanding so many things, Gathering in the Gap, Lunch on the Lawn, and all of those things continue today because of this amazing staff at the museum. If there is a leaky roof, they will all get in and get the mop. So there is no, it could be Gretchen, it could be Burke, it could be anybody, but there is no distinction between who they are and what they do for this park. Through several grants from the Virginia Federation for Garden Clubs, we were able to acquire $2,750 for native plant pollinator gardens at the museum. And I'd like to be able to see these continue. We have a wonderful volunteer gardening component here, and we work through Bert Greer. But when you stop and think about all of the resources here at the museum, how many staff are able to maintain those grounds? So even though the state does have a formula for employees, consider adding more employees to Southwest Virginia Museum and Historical State Park.
I'm gonna be watching later with a slip of money.
Well, that, again, that concludes, if you do have more comments, or questions, we've got Burke stationed outside the door with those surveys. You can grab one on your way out. There are some clipboards. We do have a few minutes here if you want to take a look at the map or talk with staff individually about parts of the presentation or the museum or the planning process in general. But again, we do super appreciate having everyone out here tonight. That survey will be again available online, and this presentation will also be posted on our webpage. So if you know somebody that couldn't make it tonight, or you want to come back and say, hey, I remember this, but I don't remember all the details, you'll be able to view that as well. And again, if you have any initial comments that you'd like to make sure get recorded for the record, for us to take a look at as part of our process, you can email them to myself. You also have the staff here if you need to come in and want to chat more. Like I said, and keep saying, we're all a big team and making this master plan happen from our end, and we depend on you all as well. So we're all communicating together and happy to continue to work with you all to move this master planning process forward from the information stage to the input and comment and development and finally adoption. So Burke will be at that door there again, and there are refreshments outside. Thank you again for putting those the foundation.
Thank you for coming.